Now your hosts, Ryan Kane and Zach Daughtry.
Good evening, barbecue family, and welcome to the second episode of Midwest Backyard Matters, proudly presented by Man Meat Barbecue. Whether you are in your backyard or out on your driveway or even competing out on the KCBS Backyard Competition Trail, always remember that Midwest Backyard Matters. As usual, I am joined by my co-host Ryan Kane, sporting the very Civil War general-esque beard. It is glorious, giving old Dave Ellison a run for his money in the beard department. How are you tonight, bud?
I'm good, dude. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Catching up from the weekend and did a little rib practice yesterday, and things are looking pretty good going into that one meat Juneteenth rib comp I've got coming up next weekend. So I think we're on the right track for that. Ribs are usually our killer when we compete, so I feel much better after but practicing this past weekend. So how about yourself?
Good. It was a good weekend. Went up to McLouth and cooked. Had some good calls. Ended up 9th overall with some good teams. So it was a good weekend. Definitely some things to work on, but
Sure.
That's kind of how it goes with the new games.
Because that was remind me, I think, was that your second or third straight top 10 in Masters?
Third.
Was your third?
Yeah, that was our third. That was our third Masters contest and our third top 10.
You can't sneeze at that, man. You guys have just been killing it lately. So I saw you had what? You had 3 top 10 calls?
Yeah, we got a 6th place in chicken. We had a 1st place rib and a 2nd place brisket. Pork was the killer.
And I'm sure we could talk a little bit more about that, but we're going to kind of keep it moving. But no, like I said, that was a stacked field, and like I said, you guys have just been doing. I mean, you guys have taken to the Master Series like ducks in water, man. Like, so that's awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let's start off tonight by recapping this past weekend's backyard results. This will be for the weekend of June 3rd through the 4th. So first up, we had the Smoking in Steel in Owatonna, Minnesota. A lot of our friends, the Facebook group and of the show, were competing in this one. Joey Lee of Furlong Smoking Seafood with a 340.56. Alan Larimore of Wrecking Crew Barbecue with a 330.26. Coming in 4th, Troy and Jen Canfield of Pity Q Barbecue, 325.14. Smoking GQ 5th. Smoking and Cool Down 6th. Sensuous Barbecue 7th. Marty Party Barbecue in 8th. Dogs Barbecue in 9th. And Lucky Shoes Barbecue rounding out the top 10 in Smoking in Steel. In the backyard category, Joey Lee and Furlong's taking first overall with a 169.12. Alan Larimore and Wrecking Crew with 168.56 second overall. Smoky GQ third. Pity Q 4th. Big Ten Bones 5th. Sensuous Barbecue 6th. Marty Party Barbecue 7th. Lucky Shoes in 8th. Smoking and Cool Downs 9th. And G's Q rounding out the top 10 for backyard chicken. In the ribs, it was Joey Lee once again taking first overall with a 171.44. Northern Light Smoke second overall. Big Ten Bones third. Dogs Barbecue 4th. Smoking and Cool Downs 5th. Sensuous Barbecue 6th. Wrecking Crew Barbecue 7th. Pity Q in 8th. Marty Party in 9th. And Smoky GQ rounding out the top 10 in the ribs category. At the Honeybee Barbecue Competition in Lafayette, Georgia this past weekend, we had Smokestack Barbecue, Tallulah Falls School Pit Vipers, very kind of cool name for that one, Southern Life Barbecue, IBOK Holy Smokers, Holy Smokes Barbecue, Dog Patch Q, Itawa Smoke, Heavy Smokers, Slater House Barbecue, and Jack Shack Barbecue rounding out the top 10 overall at the Honeybee. In backyard chicken at the Honeybee Barbecue Competition in Lafayette, Georgia, we had Southern Life with a 174.29 to take first, Smokestack Barbecue in second, Tallulah Falls in third, Itawa Smoke in fourth, Dixie Pigs and Chicks in fifth, Heavy Smokers in sixth, Red Beards Barbecue seventh overall, Slater House Barbecue in eighth, True Grit Barbecue in ninth, and Bourbon and Blues Barbecue 10th overall to round out the top 10 in backyard chicken. For the backyard ribs, Tallulah Falls takes first with a 178.85, just shy of that 180 perfect score. Holy Smokes in second. Smokestack Barbecue in third. Slater House Barbecue in fourth. Dogpatch Q in fifth. IBOK Holy Smokers in sixth. Southern Life in seventh. Jack Shack in eighth. Billy Mack in ninth. And Itawa Smoke rounding out the top 10 in backyard ribs at the Honeybee. In the backyard pork, which is a category we've seen added just a little bit more often lately in the backyard circuit, IBOK in first with a 169.68. Smokestack with a 167th for second overall. True Grit Barbecue in third. Jack Shack Barbecue in fourth. Southern Life in fifth. Dogpatch Q in sixth. Dixie Pigs and Chicks in seventh. Billy Mack in eighth. Tallulah Falls in ninth. And Holy Smoke Barbecue rounding out the top 10 in the pork category at the Honeybee. Last but not least, there were only 6 competitors on the backyard circuit for the Horsetown Brewing Q at Norco, California. Double Trouble wins it all with a first overall of 353.71. Ricky Ray's second. Smoking Ray's Backyard in third. Blackout Barbecue in fourth. Booney's Pit and Q in fifth. And Sons of Sins rounds out the competition, finishing in sixth place. Double Trouble in first in Backyard Chicken, followed by Ricky Ray's, Smoking Ray's Backyard, Blackout, Booney's Pit and Q, and Sons of Sin in sixth. In ribs, we had Double Trouble once again winning first overall in that category with a 174.85. Blackout in second, Ricky Ray's in third, Smoking Ray's Backyard in fourth, Sons of Sins in fifth, and Booney's Pit and Q in sixth place in backyard ribs.
Good job to all those guys competing this past weekend.
Absolutely, absolutely. And here is your Team of the Year standings as it currently is in backyard chicken. Rib Life, first overall. The Fat is where it's at in second. Our buddy Josh Hess and Hess Hogs 4 in third. Our guest for this evening, Brian Calhoun of Weez's Groovin Barbecue in fourth. Ham Squad 5th, Veteran Pork Pullers 6th, Casker's Barbecue Supplies 7th overall in chicken, Leela Q in 8th, Country Boys in 9th, and Chris Lemon and Lim's Meat Varnish rounding out the top 10 in points in chicken. On to ribs, we have Leela Q in first overall in the backyard ribs category. The Fattest where it's at in second, Dogpatch Q in third, Weez's Groovin Barbecue in fourth, Ham Squad in fifth, Cane's Barbecue in sixth, Hickory Hangover seventh, Rib Life eighth, Lim's Meat Varnish in ninth, and Robert Jackson and Swinalicious Barbecue in 10th. Shout out to a Missouri boy in Robert Jackson and being in top 10 in ribs. Like I said, a lot of good competitors out there right now on the backyard circuit, right?
Absolutely. That's really good to see. And they're already putting up the numbers where you're going to start seeing kind of slow increases moving up from that as people kind of replace placements and contests moving forward for the rest of the season. Congratulations to all those guys in the top 10 currently.
No, absolutely. I think the category really I'm watching right now is chicken, and I'll tell you why. And it seems like Josh Hess keeps battling, going back and forth. He's either second overall or third. He's battling really hard. I think he's gone to the 2 legs this year, and he's really doing well in that category and jockeying with a lot of really good teams across the country in the chicken category.
Absolutely. It's an uphill battle for kind of any of the Midwest teams doing Team of the Year, just because we don't tend to get as full of contests. And I know Josh and Weez are both 2 they'll put in the miles and travel to kind of where the teams are. So it'll be really interesting to see how they manage to fill out the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I think another one is, like I said, Robert Jackson has really come on strong on the backyard circuit this year. Like I said, he's 10th overall currently in ribs, and we hope to see him have continued success in the ribs category and all the categories for that matter. But ribs for sure. Like I said, we always like to see those Midwest guys from Missouri and Indiana and Illinois and all those guys jockeying with the Southerners and the Mid-Atlantic guys for top 10 points in backyard.
Absolutely. Robert, if you're watching this, I'm still waiting on that backflip from your first GC. You can go ahead and just do that at any time.
Yeah, because if I remember he was at the Royal this year, and I think, didn't he win the Royal if memory serves?
He reserved.
He reserved. Okay, for some reason I thought
Yeah,
he
was
won
reserved
grand.
for that contest, and that was only I
No,
think
he
his
did
second or
really
third contest. Yeah.
did really good. I know he's going to be competing in the fall with a lot of us at the backyard double down in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. That team list came out today, the updated team list, and man, it is a stacked competition. That's one I'm really looking forward to jockeying up with all of you guys in the fall. That's going to be a really good one.
Yeah, I was talking to Nick Davis about that this weekend up in the South, and he's really excited about it. I'm hoping to go down and be able to help out in some way if we can.
That'll be really fun. Like I said, yeah, since you're not among us lesser mortals on the backyard circuit, it's going to be fun to see you grace the backyard guys with your pro presence in Tahlequah in October.
No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, let's move on to something that people actually.
Anyways, nice little segue into introducing our guest for this evening. So our guest for tonight is Brian Weez Calhoun of Weez's Groovin Barbecue out of Grays Lake, Illinois. How's it going tonight, bud?
Good. How you guys doing, man?
Good, man.
Doing
Thanks
good, good, Brian. Yeah, absolutely. So Brian,
a little hard to hear you guys. I don't know if it's my phone or what, but kind of quiet.
Well, we're probably going to say it's on your end, so we don't have to admit that we aren't running a clean show this evening. But I don't know. It's probably our end. We'll. Can you hear us now, though?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay, good deal. Well, Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in this crazy world of barbecue.
Well, I live up here north of Chicago, and probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I was me and my wife were going out to dinner a lot, and I kind of got tired of spending a lot of money on food. And we were sitting there one night having dinner, and I'm like, I think I can do this. So at the age of 36, I cooked my first steak, and then I was never a big fan of ribs my whole life because everybody ever had ribs. You get to put them in the grill for an hour, and you try to, and I'm like, wait, when it's chew stuff, what do you, and so I was never a big fan of ribs, or I always thought barbecue was basically sauce, and I was at a buddy's house, and a friend brought some ribs over, and I tried the ribs, and I was like, man, these are delicious. How do you make these, and then my buddy Jeff and John I started asking a million questions like everybody else, and then just like any hobby that I do, it went from, I'm going to try cooking a rack of ribs to basically I'm cooking barbecue every weekend until, no one wants to eat barbecue anymore, I'm cooking steaks, and then I, started getting into making homemade biscuits and gravy, and then pretty much if I see it, I want to cook it, I'll make it. It don't matter if it's pasta, barbecue, steaks, anything. I love cooking. So I kind of, that's kind of how I got into, barbecuing and cooking and stuff. So.
It's funny how, because I remember when I first started off cooking, it always starts off so casual. And then the next thing you know, it turns into a hobby. Then it turns into a hardcore hobby. Then it becomes an obsession. And then the next thing you know, it's such a huge part of your life, cooking.
Yeah.
Or cooking backyard, cooking in the backyard, or cooking barbecue in general. It just becomes a huge part of your daily life. And I think, you got to have that passion for cooking just to even get into barbecue. You got to want to cook and you got to want to learn. I think that's just what helps everybody along to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about your contest setup. So do you cook out a tent? Do you got a camper? What tell us a little bit when you're out on the competition trail, how's your cook site set up?
So last year, for the most part, when I would cook, I would just have a 10x10 setup, cooked on 2 Weber Smoky Mountains, and I slept in the back of my car. I kind of try to keep it cheap so that, it wasn't costing me too much money, and with me being away, at least I could make up like, well, if I'm gonna be gone, at least it doesn't cost too much money. I don't have the cash to my trailer and all that stuff. So I kind of, that's what I did for the first part of last year. And then we had a tent at the house, so I'm like, well, I should try bringing the tent. And then that developed into, I could put 2 tables in there, blow up mattress, a little heater, and kind of have that as a prep area to get out of the wind. Well, this year when I went to Virginia, I got about 5 minutes before I got there, it started just pouring rain. I tried to set the tent up one of the arms of the tent was broke. Water got flooded inside the tent. I mean, I was ready to leave the tent, get back in the car, and just drive back home. I mean, it was, I was soaked. It was awful. So I got through the competition, cooked for 3 days out there. And then I discovered that the Easy Up makes a thing called a cube, which hooks to the side and the top of the tent, and it pops all the way up. And it's basically, you sleep inside. It's got 4 windows to it. So I ordered that, and that's kind of my setup now for all my prep. I can put 2 tables in there. I put a 6-foot table and a 4-foot table, and then I can put my air mattress. So I can, do all my prep, build my boxes out of the wind. None of the elements bother me there, And then I have a 10 by 15 Easy Up that this year I moved over to gateways, which are obviously, now I see the ease of using them compared to the Weber Smoky Mountains, but just the ease of traveling with them, because I just put them on the back of my 4Runner, strap them down, and then I got a 40-year-old ex-cargo I throw on the top of my car to throw some stuff in, and then that's how simple it is. I don't, when I cook competitions, I try to cook next to guys like Kane, so I can, plug into their generator and still some power, So that's my pretty primitive setup,
Happy to share. Man, that Easy Up cube is awesome. I saw that in Colombia, and I was like, holy hell, how did I cook an entire year? And I did not know this thing existed. I would have bought one immediately.
But it's definitely a cool setup. I remember Ryan last year rocked the Cubaroo to all of his to his comps, and just threw that rack on the back of his Subaru and just went off. And I mean, like I said, there's more than a way to skin a cat. I think we do the Easy Up thing, and man, well, like I said, we cannot wait next year to get our camper, because we've done the Easy Up thing for only 2 years, and man, we've hit every weather condition possible. And from blowing rain and wind to hotter than 9 kinds of hell, and we're just ready to be on those indoor conditions. And that just shows the passion the guys have to compete, as they get out there and set up whatever way that they can, and they hack it in conditions that maybe a lot of people wouldn't really want to cook in, or even just be outside in general. So good on you, man. Like I said, it just shows your passion, dedication to competing.
So, Brian, I've got a question for you. I've always been kind of curious where Weez came from and where Weez's Groovin Barbecue. What are the origins for the name?
Oh, Weez, I got the nickname in high school. My brother used to hang out with a bunch of musicians and stoner guys, and they met my brother one time. They said, the next guy that gets on the school bus, we're going to call Cockroach. So my brother got on, they nicknamed him Roach. And then when they met me, I was a little squirmy, always loud and obnoxious and stuff. So they said I was like a little weasel. So they nicknamed me Weez. And we had guys, these brothers were called Orange and Tangerine. And we got a buddy named Troll and a guy named Brad. I mean, it was all like a high school thing. And then as I got older, a lot of people didn't know me by Brian. They just knew me as Weez. They didn't know. And that was kind of the name that stuck. So when I was thinking of a name to come up with for barbecue, I played drums in a blues band for about 10 years, and I love music, blues, reggae, kind of pretty much anything. So it was kind of a way to implement my love of music into my nickname, because everybody knew me, So I was like, all right, well, I got to come up with something where if I ever wanted to do a food truck or do something, someone would know who I was. So that's kind of where the Weez's Groovin Barbecue came up, was my love for music, and then my nickname from high school. So
that's awesome, dude.
Now I'm just a fat weasel,
So kind of digging into the competition stuff. I mean, you've got multiple grands and reserves at this point. I know you've got a 180. What's been the biggest win so far?
I would say Minnesota in May was pretty.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Was huge. I mean, because last year, obviously, I think it was 9 of the top 20 teams in the country were out of Minnesota. And those guys kind of, when I met them up in La Crosse and bringing home the bacon last June, I met Magnum PIG. And I mean, he kind of took me in the fold, and everybody kind of, brought me in, and, I became part of what we call the Northern Barbecue Cartel. And, so I got to know a lot of those guys, and obviously competed against them a lot up there, bringing home the bacon, both doubles, So kind of for me to go up there to Minnesota and go against these guys, and, GC up there was, I mean, that's probably, my 2 years of competing, that's my biggest, my biggest win. Cause obviously like I said, it was cool to go up there and kind of, beat those guys. Cause I love all those guys, you know what I mean? And it was nice. It was just a nice win. Like I said, it kind of, definitely unexpected. When they called second ribs, my rib box that day was, I think I had blown out bones, and they were the best ribs. So I'm like, I'm sending 6 and we'll see what happens, and it was definitely not expected, so, but it was, the competition was incredibly, ran well. Everybody up there, good grief. Craig was up there, who really helped out and needed ice, anything. Everybody up there, my rack, all those guys it was incredibly put on competition. I'm looking forward to it going back next year.
Yeah, that was our first kind of step outside of our comfort zone contest last year. And I was blown away just by the level of competition of the backyard guys that were up in Minnesota. And then when we went back up in Wisconsin, that's where I met you.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, there's a different caliber of teams up here. And it was awesome. So for you to be able to win that this year is huge. You and I had a long conversation about it as you were driving home, but that was a massive win. I was super happy for you.
Yeah. Yep. It was good, man. It was a good time up there. Great people too. I got to meet a bunch of, new cooks, got to hang out with the guys from Furlongs for the first time. And it was, and that's what I love about going to these competitions. You get to meet people from everywhere. And I don't think I've ever anybody made me feel unwelcome. Everybody brings you in, it's family, and it's, so it was kind of cool to, put names and faces up there and stuff like that. Cause you see people on Facebook and Instagram and all that. So it's always nice to put a face with the name. And so.
Absolutely. So speaking of faces to names, you've been a really good example of someone who's made those connections in the barbecue world as a backyard cook between 301 Boys to Smoking Ghost and JDQ. How have you kind of made those connections? And do you have anything you would say to newer teams or even seasoned teams looking to make either sponsorship connections or just kind of build those bridges with people in the barbecue community?
It just comes to being a weasel, man. You just weasel your way.
Yeah.
No, it was, obviously I know, later we're going to talk about influences, but I think, hanging out with the guys from the barbecue bus, really, I got to meet a lot of people. That was, besides obviously, kind of seeing how, a team operates and all the things that came from friendship with those guys, I got to meet, a lot of, just a lot of cool people. And that kind of led to my connection to kind of Wichita Packing, which obviously everybody knows, I run all their, their meat. If I got to cook pork, I'm going to Wichita, my ribs, everything, it kind of, led me to meet them, and then I came out here to 301 Boys. I did not know Scott. Someone tagged me in a post on Facebook last year. I knew everybody was using Texas pepper jelly. I couldn't find any online. He had a whole bunch of it. I came in and I think I bought 15 bottles of whatever it was. And then he kind of gave me a cell phone number and told me if I need anything, let him know. So then the next week, I ordered a bunch of stuff, and we kind of just, became, like a lot of people coming in and out, you get to know your local barbecue, store. And up here, we don't really have a lot of options, and he doesn't sell smokers or nothing. He's, charcoal pellets, rubs and stuff like that. So I'd come in and get things I needed. And then I started recommending stuff, to him. Like, hey man, you should try carrying, Smoke This KC or Smoking Ghost or, any of this kind of stuff. And we kind of started building our friendship. And then I was supposed to go to a competition, and I ended up not going, and I had a bunch of extra meat. So I kind of called and said, hey, you want me to come out and, cook out in the parking lot? We'll give food away. Like, I got all this meat. So I came out, we cooked an event, and it was huge. People, I couldn't believe people were showing up to, the way it was. We had a line of people out, giving out free pulled pork and ribs. And so then we set a few more of those up. And then last October, he called me, and the city of Johnsburg, where we're located at, needed someone to come out and vend hot food. We had like 2 weeks to basically find something to cook for 300 people. So through my connections, I ended up getting a pull behind. We showed up at 4 a.m. because we cooked on site. we're sitting there kind of talking, and he mentioned something about, I got to find a way to, pay you back for doing all this. I said, well, why don't you help me go to the invitational? I could use that. And then that kind of basically spawned into my sponsorship with him, which is obviously, if it was not for Scott and 301 Boys, I could not cook the way that I'm cooking this year. He's a huge backer of mine. I do a lot of cooks. We just did a huge cook yesterday out here, so that's kind of how I did that out here. Is I spent 6 months just getting to know him and, showing that, we could, besides being friends, we have a business relationship, and then, it's with Paul from Smoking Ghost. That was out of the blue too. He was the first guy I met in barbecue 2.5 years when I was walking around Kenosha. I didn't know anybody. I'm like, oh, barbecue. And I'm walking around, and I was the annoying people, walking up and, hey, what is this? What is that? What is this? And, Paul kind of took me into the trailer and talked to me, and, we've built a great friendship, and he kind of took me under his wing. And then Josh was, a lot of you, Ryan. I swung through the shop last year on my way to the Invitational, and I knew you were using JDQ, and we kind of knew each other. But I'm like, dude, if this guy's winning all this, I got to try this JDQ. So I got a couple bottles, and then ended up coming to Kansas City, and then what went from being lunch was a 10-hour hangout with Josh, and we got to know each other, and it kind of just, so that's kind of how the sponsorships is just building relationships, and not just what you can do for each other, but obviously, dealing with good people and like obviously a lot of, if someone's going to put their name on me, I want to represent them well. I don't want to have negative, whatever it is, negative social media, any of that kind of stuff. I think a lot of that will have people shy away from you, So kind of a long answer to your question,
Yeah,
but that's
absolutely.
kind of how
It's definitely not something
sponsorship became. It's just the relationships.
No, man, that's perfect. It's not something that happens overnight, but I think I don't want to say that it's easier for masters teams or anything like that, but backyard teams can get sponsorship stuff, but it's like you said, going into your local barbecue store, or just, asking the questions that need to be asked, and forming those friendships with those people. And, it's amazing what comes of that when, something as small as, let me try this rub, and, oh, I like this, let me tell somebody about this rub. And it's crazy to think of where that goes.
Yeah. And up here at 301, we always joke about how basically over 1/3 of the stuff we got on the shelves is things I brought back from competitions. Whether it's JDQ, we're going to be carrying your behind barbecue, his new green chili bacon rub. Any of that kind of stuff, Scott would not hear about if it wasn't for me out there. So that's kind of, whenever I find stuff like that, I tell them, like, well, let me reach out to Scott. I don't write the checks, but I help hold the pen. And that's how
There
I'm
you go.
the PR guy here.
That's awesome. Zach, you want to ask a question or two?
Yeah, no, I think to kind of piggyback on what Ryan just said, I think, for those guys out there, backyard or otherwise, looking to get sponsored, the best piece of advice that I got came from Joel Fleetwood. Shout out to Meet Rushmore, by the way. Joel said, don't go to look to make a connection. Don't go looking to make a business connection. Go and make a friend first, and a genuine friendship at that. And then everything will develop off of you making that friend, whether it be a fellow competitor, a team you admire, a person that has a brand in the industry. All of those things will come with making a friend first, and then it'll all follow in its rightful place off of that. So I think you really nailed it on its head there about making friendships, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day. Yeah. And then the sponsorships, will come inevitably from those friendships.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I tell everybody, when I met Josh, it was almost like it was an interview process. We went to lunch, and then he's like, well, what are you doing later? I'm like, nothing. And we ended up kind of just bouncing to 3 or 4 places together. And then it was, like I said, it was something that naturally happened. I told him, any of the stuff that I use, I would use it whether or not someone's going to sponsor me or discount. I don't care. Like, if it helps me win, that's what I'm going to use. I'm just lucky that the stuff I use get, people that believe in me, have put their belief in me that I'm going to, do good and obviously, and represent them well. So.
Yeah, sure. So
that's awesome, man.
So who or what has been your biggest mentor or influence since you've gotten into barbecue?
Well, I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm, I guess I'm lovingly referred to as the bus bitch, So I think it was a year ago? So it'd be 2 years ago this Father's Day. I ended up going down to Iowa. I met a guy up here in Chicago from SI2 Barbecue. Never been to a competition, met him. He invited me to come down. I went down. I could only go for one of the days of the comp because it was my first Father's Day. My wife just looked at me and said, "I'll be home Saturday night. I'll be home for Father's Day. It's it's just a one-time thing, honey. That's it. That's all it's going to be, So I went to Iowa, down to Indiana, and he was set up next to the barbecue bus. So I met Brendan and Brian and Caitlin, and I think within an hour of kind of meeting them, I had heard that they were talking about going to the American Royal, which I had just watched. At that point, I had watched videos online, and I kind of went on, the bus and like, basically was like, "Hey man, I know you don't know me, but if you, need anybody to help do dishes, run and do anything or whatever at the Royal, let me know." And then I didn't hear nothing. And then he kind of reached out and said, "Hey, and I'm a truck driver." So he reached out and asked if I would drive the bus down to the Royal. And of course, I'm like, "Hell yeah, dude, that'd be great." And then that was, COVID year. So we didn't have the Royal. So I was let down. I mean, it was like, for a guy like me that's never been a barbecue to go to the Royal, I'm like, this is like crazy, But then he reached back out. I saw him in October in Union Grove that year, and he asked if I would drive the bus down to the Invitational in Kansas. And I did. It was an incredible trip. I mean, it was, I didn't know them well before we left. And, we had a great time. He welcomed me back anytime I wanted to come and kind of hang out. And then from there, I just built my friendship with Brian and Brendan, and they, obviously, it's just like a lot of guys that get mentorship. There was never, I never asked for recipes. If I saw anything inside the sanctuary, they call it sanctuary. I didn't, it's, how it is. That's if you're allowed in there, you don't go tell anybody anything, So like he kind of, Brian kind of talked to me about trimming chicken, or ribs, he gave me kind of the basics of like, people are using Blues Hog or a Cimarron Docks, which a lot of people use. It was kind of, it gave me a starting point. And then being able to watch him and Brendan cook together, to watch, when they start cooking, they don't leave the trailer. They stick to a timeline. I got to taste obviously some incredible food because they're one of the best teams out there. So it helped me know what tenderness is supposed to be like, when I'm making chicken or ribs or whatever it is, tasting their stuff, I kind of know like, what to look for and what it's supposed to taste like, so I would, so obviously, like I said, the barbecue bus where, I got to go to the Jack with those guys and all that. I mean, so just to kind of be around them for, last year and just see a lot of, just kind of see how they work was the biggest influence. Paul Buow from Smoking Ghost, we've become great, friends. He's another guy that's just a big influence on me. But I would say those two guys, but definitely Brian and Brendan from the bus. I mean, if it wasn't for those guys, I don't, I don't know if I would be doing competition barbecue right now, so I would definitely say the bus, so.
Well, that's good. So to wrap things up here with you tonight, Brian, what's next for Weez Groovin Barbecue?
So I'm out for a couple weeks. We're going down to the Outer Banks for family vacation. And then when I come back, I'm hitting it hard again. I'm cooking in Belvedere, cooking down in Missouri, cooking Eureka. I think I got 2 competitions in August, 2 in September. Then I'm going to Oklahoma in October, finish up in Union Grove, and then obviously we'll be going down to Gadsden in November. So I think I got 2 of all my doubles and my rib burns. I think I got another 13 cooks this year, or 14 cooks. So.
Well, it sounds good. Like I said, I don't know if I'll see you out there on the trail. I know I will see you at the double down in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. I was telling Ryan earlier, that's going to be a really good one. There are a lot of really, really good teams that are going to be going at it for a couple days down in Oklahoma. So, but I'll see you before then, man. You take care. And like I said, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. We'll see you guys soon, man.
And
thanks, buddy.
No problem. Take care.
Yeah,
Later. No, I think Brian made really good points on those sponsorship connections. You got to find a brand you believe in. You got to go out making friendships. Don't go out looking to be a leech. Don't go out looking to use somebody. Somebody that is in this business is going to sniff that out right away. They're going to look for those hangers on. They want to find people that they believe in truly as friends before they begin to support them competitively. And I think he really made a good point there for all of our viewers out there looking to get sponsorships. That is really, there are right ways and wrong ways to go about getting sponsorships, and he definitely knows how to go about it the right way.
Absolutely. I think it's that, and then just the influence of being around the barbecue bust. I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of information that you learn by just being there, right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily it's not all about what you ask. It's really just about what you're able to observe. And there's a lot that you can get from just watching somebody who's a master at their craft do that. And I think that's been really beneficial for Brian. I know it's been really beneficial in my development as a cook. And it's one of those things I recommend for anybody is just find somebody that you know, that you trust, and ask to just shadow. It's really helpful.
Yeah, one of the big things that helped us, and this is on the master side of it, a guy who has really been my first real friend in competition barbecue that has become a mentor to me, a guy I can always feel like I can ask questions is Brian Miller of Mad Mutts. The guy wins, really good guy. Met him a couple years ago at my very first competition. It was a non-sanction, my very first ever. And since then, he's been really gracious in willing to talk to me, mentor me. He invited me up to cook with him at Winston at the Winston comp last season. And just, it was a situation, like you said, where if they invite you up and they're allowing you into that sanctum, it is an eyes and ears open and mouth shut. And you just try to absorb as much as you can because they are taking the time to bring you in during their cook. We all spend a lot of money to do this. We all take time away from our families and all that. And if someone is willing to allow you in to that space and pull back the curtain for you and allow you to see their process and how to win and how to compete, it is a situation where you 100% need to take advantage.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a really great conversation. I'm glad that we got to talk to Brian. I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So anything you want to leave the viewers with tonight, Ryan, before we sign off?
I'm good. Have a great week, everybody.
All right, guys. This has been Midwest Backyard Matters, proudly presented, by Man Meat Barbecue. Remember, if you are in your backyard, out on the driveway, or competing out on the KCBS Backyard Competition Trail, always remember that Midwest Backyard Matters. Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Midwest Backyard Matters, brought to you by Man Meat Barbecue. Additional sponsors: American Fire Barbecue and Grilling Supply, Sofa King Awesome Barbecue, Trauma Hogs Barbecue, and Hunsaker Smokers.